Heading back to Mar-a-Lago, Florida. And joining us live now for more is presidential historian Allan Lichtman. Allan, thank you so much for joining us.
Certainly.
When it comes to this indictment and now this arraignment for today, what kind of historical significance does this day have?
Well, it has enormous historical significance. Other presidents, like Bill Clinton and Richard Nixon, have gotten into trouble with their actions, but were never indicted for a crime. Donald Trump is the first sitting or former president to be indicted for a crime. And, for all of Donald Trump's bluster, he is not going to blow away the halls of justice. This case will rise and fall on the charges and the evidence. And too many people, both in the mainstream media and, of course, in the conservative media, have shut off their mouths, presuming they know what the charges and the evidence might be, when they don't. We're not going to know until this afternoon.
Right, and the evidence is sealed right now, but it will be unsealed once the arraignment begins. And once we start to get that information, and once this arraignment begins, the one thing that will be missing, TV cameras in the courtroom. What do you think about that decision to bar cameras from inside of the courtroom? Although we are hearing, according to CNN reports, that Trump is expected to be speaking in the hallway of the courtroom where some cameras will be allowed.
Well, it's quite a difference to actually watch the proceedings as opposed to Donald Trump's putting his spin on the proceedings. And I have to say, Donald Trump has called this black district attorney an animal and a racist. And he and his allies have charged that he is a puppet of the Jewish billionaire George Soros, reprising some of the worst and oldest stereotypes that imply anti-Semitism and racism. The old stereotype is that Jews are unscrupulous schemers trying to take over the country and are using blacks as their instrument. I never thought I would see this kind of anti-Semitism and racism raised again in our own time. It's absolutely shameful. Say what you want about the indictment, about its perhaps political nature, but to raise anti-Semitism and racism, how far has the party of Lincoln descended?
Now, when you speak about racism, anti-Semitism, it's something that has come up in the past, especially during Donald Trump's presidency itself. And it seems to have opened the door to, let's say, like-minded people to come out and be very vocal, as well as protesters who likely will be there, Trump supporters who will be in Manhattan, who lined the streets when he arrived in New York. What do you anticipate in terms of the protests and the counter-protests that could happen later on this afternoon?
What I see is the great fizzle. Donald Trump has called for this massive protest, and so far it hasn't come close to Donald Trump's expectations. And Donald Trump is very, very acutely concerned about the size of his crowd. I think he's gone to the well once too often, although he does seem to have done very well in fundraising. And, it's amazing how Donald Trump has played his followers for suckers. Why would low-income people be contributing their hard-earned money to help pay the legal bills of a billionaire who often doesn't pay his bills anyway? It just staggers the imagination how successful this grifter has been.
Now, he is raising campaign funds after this indictment, this arraignment, apparently in the millions of dollars. And so how do you think that the proceeding today and going forward will affect his bid for the White House in 2024?
Let me say, first of all, this is just Act One of what is likely to be a multi-act drama. And I think much more serious charges are going to come in terms of his mishandling national security information, his inciting a coup to overturn our government, and tampering with election results in Georgia. In the short term, it might give him a boost in the Republican nomination. It's astonishing how his rivals for the nomination have lined up behind him rather than criticizing, what Donald Trump has done. The Republicans are supposed to be the party of morality and the party of personal responsibility, and they have just absolutely trashed it. But in the long run, I don't think Donald Trump is viable as a general election candidate. He's not going to be able to expand beyond his core base when I believe there's many other indictments are going to come down.
Okay, we'll wait and see how that all unfolds. Allan Lichtman, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We really do appreciate it.
Take care.